This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. So this is an interesting follow-up to last week's Pilch Point. We talked about how generative AI is here, for better or worse, oftentimes for worse based on the experiences that we've had with it thus far. And we said that it was definitely coming to search. Well, turns out faster than we thought. This week, two interesting things happened. One, a report came out that said Microsoft, who has a major investment in OpenAI, the company that produced ChatGPT, which was what Avram demoed last week, was weeks away from releasing an AI chatbot, whatever, back-ended version of Bing. We talked about it a little bit on the Pilch Point last week, but we didn't have a time frame of weeks away. And then they accidentally released it a little bit to some people who saw an extra tab show up on their Bing homepage. It just so happens that one of those individuals was able to capture some screenshots and a couple of videos of the thing in action to show off how it worked. And it works almost exactly the way we predicted that it would. Rather than giving a list of answers, it tries to give an answer. Whether right or not, and it had a warning on it that said, we don't know. Which isn't great, but at least it does have the warning that says, this is AI based. It might be nonsense. So, grain of salt. But, it does try to give an answer, and then it gives follow-up links under the answer to the sources that it used to generate the answer. So it's like the answer box, but seemingly on the surface, with less reason to click through, because it writes an answer in a tone similar to the way you ask the question, but it's still GPT based, and so the answers could still be incorrect, missing context, or harmful, as our demo last week showed.
So many problems, but the biggest problem is if this is, by the way, what you didn't mention is that Google is about to demonstrate the same thing.
Its own technology, which is...
Yes.
The reason why this is interesting is it's just the next version of what you demonstrated with a live failure on the show last week.
Yes.
This is just version 4, and what you showed was version 3.
Yes. I mean, that is true, but I expect that the Google one would work in a similar way.
Yeah, most certainly.
I mean, the fact that it may be better, it may be the same, people will immediately start, as soon as it's out there, people will immediately start to, including me, will probably immediately start to try to poke a hole in it and find, see how accurate it is. But the thing is, I think the biggest problem, which is what you mentioned in the article, is if this is the new future of search, then the future of publishing is in big trouble, because we've, for like 25 years now, people have counted on search engine optimization, or being in the search results, to get them traffic to their websites. and this not only includes publishers, but it also includes vendors, people selling
Mm-hmm.
things. Uh, Now, to be fair, if you're selling something, then you probably are not in a lot of danger from a chatbot, because I guess the chatbot would just tell people to, like, hey, where do I buy this? Oh, here's some stores.
Yeah.
Unless, because, well, I wouldn't say Google's not a seller, but they're not real, like they're not trying to just sell stuff themselves.
Right. They're
But
not they're not a storefront except for their own things for the most part, or Google powered things.
right,
But
so they're
they do have a dedicated search for products, which would probably make that search result accurate. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, yeah, yes. So but people who are in the business of providing information,
Mm-hmm.
such as you and I,
Yeah.
are potentially in trouble if that happens. Now, I still think that the quality of the result is not going to be as good, but the problem is sometimes not good quality stuff is good enough to get away with.
Right.
And Google, forget Bing for a second. Google has a near monopoly on search.
Mm-hmm.
So
They are the top two search engines. Not just the top one, they're the top two. Because the first one is Google and YouTube is the second.
this is quite dangerous, because we are all too reliant on them. But the problem is, like, this is also because of user habits, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
readers go to Google. They don't go, a lot of times they don't go to a website. They're like, oh yeah, let me just go, to CNET and see what's happening today.
Right.
They're like, no, let me search for this particular chunk of information that I want, and whoever comes up, that's who I'll go to.
Yeah.
And it may make a difference if they see that, okay, like, this site in search results a little more reputable to me than that one, but being number one, being number two, whatever, like, that really matters. Now, we already have been through this to an extent with the Google Answer Box,
Mm-hmm.
but that was for really short, really concise answers, and publishers just kind of stood there and took it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we can't do
And then
much
started
about this because it's
optimizing
Google.
for it. Started putting
Right.
their
Well,
started trying to put their content in there. They didn't just take
because you're
it. They
number
then
one.
right. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna
At least there's a link, right? So,
right?
you could be, if you're in there, your link will be the highest, although they'll already have gotten the information. But maybe if the information is a little bit more detailed, you know, there'll be some more data there. But yeah, people may very well be like, okay, that's fine. If Google gives me an answer, it must be okay, and I'm just going to go with Google's answer. Well, that's of great concern. So,
Yeah.
hopefully this somehow works alongside, and not by alongside, I don't just mean like, oh, here's our answer, and then if you really want it, somewhere later down the page there are actual search results. uh, I mean, there's a lot of um, lawsuits going on right now over the AI training. Like, I believe Getty Images is having a huge one,
Yeah.
uh, where they claim that something like millions of their images were used to train a model. Now, this is a very interesting philosophical and legal debate, because you could ask whether a robot or a bot has the same rights as a person to learn things. Like, if I learn by reading, if I could sit there and I had enough time to read 10 million articles, and I had a photographic memory, I guess I too could do that. And no one's going to stop me from learning from online sources and then applying that learning elsewhere. But the bot, we want to say, hey, this isn't fair. Now, as a human, I kind of am on the side of the humans here, but um, you know, it's a serious problem, and people obviously always blame the publishers. Like, well, what their bottle is broken. What would you like people to do? Because the other choices are a paywall, which some sites do, some places do, but are very unpopular, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
hard to get people to subscribe because there's so many free sources of information. So if you're the one who's asking for asking people for money to subscribe, well then you better you better make sure that you can get people to really pay for that. And it's there's not a lot of sources. I mean, people have subscription fatigue,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
and they're already having to pay for all of their streaming services. So what's the what's the outcome here? I mean, is someone going to bring Alta Vista back to life, or bring the Lycos dog back from the dead, or something, to like to have, because we used to have a lot of competition in the search
Yeah, there
space.
was.
So if Google was doing something that people didn't like, well, they could have gone somewhere else. But now, I mean, there are choices, but as far as a business is concerned, no one is optimizing for um, DuckDuckGo,
Right.
right? Um, I mean, even optimizing for Bing, I don't really see anybody doing, and that's the second. Well, as you said, not the second biggest, but the second biggest general search engine, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. So, so I took your comment and said, "All right, well let me explore on that concept, particularly around Getty Images, right? I can learn by looking. So I typed in a name of a celebrity whose name I've heard, but I have no idea what they look like. Harry Styles. No idea what he looked like
Yeah,
until a few,
what? I'm not really sure what he looks like either. Shows you how
right?
old I am.
So what I did was I went to Getty Images and I searched for Harry Styles. And here I am looking, just browsing the website, browsing the search results on their site, using their images to learn what this dude looks like. And I now have a pretty good, confusing idea of what the guy looks like. He wears a lot of weird sheer shirts. Look like they're out of a particular Seinfeld episode. But that notwithstanding, I just used their site and their image collection to learn what the guy looks like. Right? So
Yep.
it
So,
is an interesting question
do you
about
have more
yeah.
rights than a computer? But on the other hand, let's face it, most people cannot just look at a few Getty images and then immediately spit out like a ton of pretty realistic looking images of Harry
Sure,
Styles.
sure. Yeah. There's been a lot of celebrity adult material created with some of these things. In fact, there was a Twitch streamer who weird things happened this week. He was looking at AI generated imagery of some other Twitch streamers that are friends of his, and there's a tearful apology. It was the whole thing was very strange. But yeah, I could not shut the laptop and then go draw him. I'd be able to describe him, in particular this weird pirate shirt he's wearing, but I couldn't go draw him, which does create a different context than the AI
Yes. I
training
mean,
situation.
there might be somebody who's a really, really good artist and really, but that's probably very few people.
I I have a friend. She was on the show a couple of times. Had a friend. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in ages. Who could look at a picture. Somebody could come up to her and say, "I would like you to crochet this character from this anime." She'd go, "Well, I've never seen that anime. Show me a photo." They'd show her a photo. Within a couple hours, she's made the thing. fascinating and in great and terrifying detail. So yes, somebody out there probably could scroll through these couple of pages of, and by couple of pages, there are 17,000 images of Harry Styles on Getty Images. But they could scroll through a couple of pages and probably create a pretty good image, but few and far between. Versus how many of these generative AI systems are out there. I mean, I went to bing.com/chat just to see if maybe, and it took me to a search result for Bing AI. And the first thing on there is Bing's image creator. So, it's
Yep.
everybody's got one. So it's a little different than there's a couple of people who might be able to see a picture and draw. And then once an AI is trained, it can do all kinds of other interesting things that you and I wouldn't be able to do. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference, and this is going to be a fascinating legal thing to follow in that regard, because the monkey is the owner of its selfie. So there's definitely some interesting legal things when it comes to who does and does not own rights and what they can and cannot do with information. So I don't know. My guess is we're going to be seeing this at least announced, if not released, possibly before we come back for another episode. So chances are there will be another follow-up on this topic very soon. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.